All right. Welcome to the Crave Show with me, Chris Fikes, JRuss, and we have another guest with us today, Ryan, Dr. Ryan, as I like to say. How are you guys doing today? Ryan, how's it going, man?
Doing great. Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much for being with us. JRuss, how's it going, man?
It's going really well.
Yeah?
Glad to be back in the studio.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dude, JRuss, you realize it's been a month since we
yeah,
recorded?
yeah. Just a collection of reasons that we didn't.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So, okay, I got to ask, where are you at right now? That's not your normal background, man. Where are you?
No, I am in Arizona. Today was the last day working a military contract, and
Okay.
so we're staying at a friend of mine, Johnny Guns, and he's been out of town. He's on vacation in Hawaii. Shout out to those guys having a good time. And yeah, and then we went and looked at the property because we might put a tiny home out here in Arizona because we're working here so much.
Whoa,
Um,
okay.
yeah, and a friend of ours, Jack, that was on the show a few months ago,
Yes.
he's looking for kind of the same thing. So the three of us just drove around and looked at some vacant land and found actually a really nice piece. So
Cool.
that was exciting, but yeah, just packing too much into every day.
Yeah. I like that
Yeah,
hat, dude. That Firebird hat. That's cool.
yeah, it's a good one.
What part of
I,
Arizona?
the property we looked at is in Marana, which is kind of on the Tucson end, in
Oh,
between Phoenix and Tucson.
yeah.
Um,
Cool.
so we work with military guys pretty commonly, and they like to do things where people can't see what they're doing. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah, for sure.
the site that we're at is just kind of across the highway from where we looked at land.
I just randomly saw in the weather that you guys might get some thunderstorms here today or tonight.
Yeah, so the course was supposed to run through tomorrow, but they saw the same thing you saw,
Yeah.
and so it ended today because it's like 100% chance of rain all day tomorrow. So they're not dragging us out there and letting some of those guys that they have lives that are somewhat unpredictable, and so when they can get an extra day at home, the command is usually pretty generous with that time.
Yeah. So JRuss, I don't know if you're gonna remember this from a few weeks ago, but you owe me a high five.
I am.
Do you know
What,
why?
what,
Do you know what
what was
that
the
means?
bet? What was the
No,
bet?
not a bet. We were
No.
talking about something on the show a few weeks ago. We were talking about high-fiving people when something happens. And so as of a week and a half ago, you owe me a high five.
Okay.
You don't remember, do you?
What, I don't. I
We were
vaguely.
talking about congratulating people and giving them a high five when they do something in the sky.
Oh, what'd you do?
I had a cutaway.
Uh, That wasn't your first, was it?
No, that wasn't my first.
Oh, okay.
But remember,
Yeah.
we were saying,
Yeah. Right.
congratulating people and giving them a high
Yes.
five when they have a
You.
cutaway.
Yeah. Not giving them crap about their procedures or whether they
Right.
did everything perfectly, but
Uh,
just that they had an emergency situation and they dealt with it in an
and they're still
acceptable way.
alive.
Yeah, they
Yes.
saved their life. So yeah, I had my second cutaway.
Nice. What'd you have?
It was line twist. And so actually, so there's a couple things. One thing that I want to say, and then a question I want to ask you. Uh, and so Ryan, for all of our viewers, Ryan is not a skydiver, and we have him on the show though for a specific reason, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But so Ryan, my malfunction when I deployed my parachute, it opens up obviously above you, right? But as it opened, it had twists in the lines. So the canopy is inflated,
Hmm.
and it's working. It's holding me. It's slowed. I've slowed down, and it's flying, but the lines are all twisted up. And so normally line twist is not that big of a deal. And so lots of times you can just, you can kind of kick your legs or you maneuver your body or you do different things to untwist the lines. They'll just untwist. You kind of spin around underneath the canopy.
Hmm.
And then once they open up, then everything's fine. You just fly your canopy back home and you land, no big deal. Um, so, but JRuss, my question for you. So here's what happened. I pitched my pilot chute. I felt the canopy open above me, and as it opened, I could feel the line twist. You know what I'm saying? Like you can feel it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, I got some line twist. Once it opened, I looked up, and it was only about 4 twists. It wasn't that bad. And I fly my canopy, it's a 129. So it's not tiny, it's not big, it's just a mid-range, nothing fancy, nothing fast. And so I thought, oh, okay. So I started to kind of kick out of it, and it started diving. And within just a few seconds, that canopy was diving and spinning pretty fast, and I was on my back.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that I want to say, I think I'm alive right now because of our podcast, because we've talked about line twist so much, and because we've talked about not fighting it, not messing with it, just get rid of it. Like as soon as that thing started diving and I was on my back, I didn't even look at my altimeter. I didn't even look at my altitude. I just said, nope, I'm done. I'm not getting out of this. And I immediately cut away. And as I put my hand on my reserve handle, my reserve's already open, my RSL.
Yeah.
So, I really am serious. I think because of all the conversations we've had about line twist specifically, not fighting it, not messing with it, just get rid of it. That's what happened. Because I didn't pitch low, but by the time I was under reserve, I think I was just barely under 2,000 feet. Right. So without
What do
all
you
those
call your hard deck?
I mean, $2,000 is
$2,000?
what yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but I didn't even look. I was just like, no, I don't need to look. I'm getting rid of it.
Mm.
But I think without all those conversations, without all the stuff we talked about, I can imagine myself believing that I could have gotten out of it and fighting it until I'm down to, 1,000 or 800 feet on my back. Now my reserve's popping out, everything's tangled up, and I'm toast,
Yeah.
So I really, if people are listening, I just want to reiterate that if your canopy is diving and spinning in line twist, I mean please chime in, JRuss, but I don't see, it's not worth it. Just let the canopy go, man.
$100.
People are resistant because of the money, huh?
Yeah, for lots of reasons. I mean,
yeah,
lots of reasons. But when you cut away your main canopy, Ryan,
it's gone.
It goes away, and it's going to float through the sky, and it's going to land somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And part of your reserve, there's another piece that goes away from your reserve. So you have to go find these two pieces of equipment. Your canopy, your main canopy is worth at least $1,000, if not $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for some people. It depends on the canopy you have.
Mm-hmm.
And the piece of reserve equipment that you lost is worth, a couple hundred. Anyways, you're talking about, okay, it's money, but also just the hassle of getting your reserve repacked. You can't jump the rest of the day. I mean, there's all these issues,
mm-hmm.
but when it comes down to it, you're talking about your life,
mm-hmm.
So it's just not worth it. JRuss, what were you were going to say something?
I mean, everything that you said, but, I think if you could go back to some of the people that I know that are no longer with us, who made a different decision than you did and tried to fight and waited too long, and ask them beforehand, hey, is your life worth $4,000? Unequivocally, yes, it is, and more. But for some reason, that wasn't in front of their mind at that moment. And I'm glad it was for you.
Yeah. So people listening, please just get rid of it. Because I think part of it also, Ryan, and this is for you a little bit too. Line twist, typically, I think in the mind of a skydiver, line twists are not a serious malfunction. Usually, that's just kind of how I can remember when I was getting my skydiving license. It takes you 25 jumps to get your license. During those 25 jumps, I had line twist on 2 different jumps. But you're on a really big docile canopy, and it's super easy to get out of those line twists. So because of that, you kind of think, oh, line twists aren't serious. It's not a big deal. But it is a very big deal. And the smaller your canopy gets, the more serious it is. And as you progress in skydiving, as you get better and better, most of the time, not always, most of the time people want to downsize to a smaller canopy for lots of reasons. But so that brings me to my next question, JRuss. I was telling my friend about the malfunction and the cutaway. And I told him, when it first opened up, I had, 4 or 5 twists, and the canopy was flying straight. Everything was fine. And it wasn't spinning, it wasn't diving, it wasn't anything. But then it started diving and spinning. And his question for me was, he said, "Oh, did you try to kick out of it?" And he kind of smiled at me. I was like, "Well, yeah." And he goes, "That's why it started diving. That's why it started spinning. Don't do that." Have you ever heard that?
Well, a bunch of years ago, a skydiver who is no longer with us, but not for that reason, put out a video because there was if you can keep your head about you in that scenario and it's not diving, it's just twisted up, there is a way that you can take the risers and work the line twist down to the risers, at which point the canopy, the lines are basically unobstructed and the spin is just in the riser material. And so if you have the presence to do that, you don't kick, because what happened in between the time that your canopy opened and the time that it started spinning was that an asymmetry was created where like your one line group was lower than the other, and you told the canopy that you wanted it to turn. So when you I can agree somewhat with what your friend is saying, but not
I'm not
everybody
even
is.
Hold on, JRuss. The audio is like, you sound like a
A robot.
disgruntled robot or something. You have to
Mm,
back up. You said in the time that the
is
canopy
it better?
opened. Now it is, yeah.
Okay. In like your canopy opened and it was flying straight,
Yeah.
and at some point an asymmetry was introduced, and that could be what you did with your body, and it could be like the lines were together and then they slipped, the friction gave. If you have the presence of mind to do the riser thing, your canopy's not diving, then that is an option where you potentially don't create an asymmetry by trying to kick. But since the overwhelming segment of the skydiving community believes that you kick to get out of twist, that's what you're taught on a student canopy, that is what most people do, and it's effective. It just, if you happen to have that random moment where, to be honest, I don't think your 129 is that aggressive, but any canopy, you can get it into a steep dive and then it's just not worth it. So if you knew that technique is something that, again, in that you can be calm and just get through that, then that is something you can try. And there's instructional videos out there for that exact thing.
Yeah, well, I've seen, I don't know if I've seen the exact video you were talking about, but I have seen one where exactly what you said. They had line twist, and what they did is they take the twist and you look at the top of the twist and you're basically trying to untwist the top, which means you're twisting it down to you.
Yeah.
And the video I saw, he said you twist it down to you, and then you can grab above the twist and use that as a leverage point to control yourself. So when my friend told me that, I thought, so I've been thinking about it a lot since then. My theory is that because there was only a few twists, like let's just say there was only 4, that's not very many twists. So those lines, there's not that much friction. So when I started kicking, it's very likely that one of my hips pushed, or one of my thighs pushed on my leg strap, right? And it pulled that side of my canopy, my rig, my riser, it pulled everything down. Because there was only a few twists, those lines were able to go, that tension was able to go through the twist and pull that side of the canopy down and introduce the dive. That's what I don't think I would have thought of that on my own. That's what my friend made me think about it. So I'm just wondering, I'm going to put that out there for everybody. Hey, let's just at least consider it. Let's just at least think about it. Is that fair? Is that?
Yeah, it's something to think about. And then on the other hand, you had a situation, you enacted a procedure that can clear that situation. It didn't work, and you dealt with it appropriately. And I think it's kind of human nature to armchair quarterback people. Like, oh, did you think of this? And well, okay, no, I didn't. I did a thing. It's not like you have this mountain of available time. Like, you got to do something, which you did. It didn't work, and then you dealt with it. And so this is kind of Ryan, you weren't in our podcast when we talked about this, but what Chris and I talked about was the high five thing was to change the culture of skydivers, to change the mindset of not like, oh, you fucked up because you didn't do this other thing that might have worked, as if you have this eternity to do all this in. You've got seconds to make a decision, and then you've got a number of seconds less than 10 to deal with that emergency that happened. And I don't know. I don't know if we need to armchair quarterback everybody.
No, I like the
fine.
high five thing. It changes the whole vibe. It's like gratitude instead of like, digging into procedural things.
Yeah.
I think, you guys know the probabilities of what happens, when a line twist or some other problem, and you're dealing with probabilities, and you have different options to deal with them. And I think the only wrong solution is not making a decision. You go with your decision, you act quick, and then you have your backup. But it seems like you guys have multiple options to deal with them.
Yeah. And some of the culture going along with what JRuss was saying, and your question about just malfunctions and cutaways in general, some of it's kind of depending on the malfunction and the cutaway. Sometimes people's response is almost like, oh, you sissy, you cut away. What a sissy thing to do. Which is like, no, we should not be making people feel bad for cutting away. We should be high-fiving them and say, you saved your life. Could you have done something differently? I don't know, but you're here, you're alive, and you're safe. So you did something right.
Yeah.
So
I got a question. How many jumps have you done? And so you have 2 cutaways in your life.
Yeah. Let me say mine first, JRuss.
Yeah.
So your question is how many jumps and how many cutaways?
I know you have 2 cutaways, so I want to know how many jumps it takes to get to 2 cutaways.
Well, it's different for everybody, but for me, that cutaway, and I haven't had a chance to jump since then, but that cutaway was jump number 1,387 for me.
Statistically, in the community, it's 1 per 1,000 jumps, roughly.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that? I didn't know that. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know.
So I'm right in line with the statistics in that I have, well, maybe not right in line. I had a canopy that was defective from the manufacturer. I bought it new, and I had 2 cutaways and 5 jumps, and I sent it back, and they said, "Yep, it's not right. Sorry about that. We'll give you whatever you want." So that 2 and 5 jumps was kind of a lot. But I have around, I'm not sure exactly, 21 cutaways. It could be 22.
So you have 22,000 jumps.
A little bit more.
It's like 24,000.
But somewhere around there.
Damn.
So before we move on, because the jump numbers get a little bit ridiculous after a while. But...
Hold on. Oh, I got to tell Ryan something, because I calculated this for Pete Allen with his number of jumps. So my math,
35,000. Where's he at?
Yeah, something 36. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
His free fall time, I calculated it. So I'm going to kind of try to make the adjustment for you. Basically, JRuss has somewhere around, like, just free fall, right? From the plane to before he opens up his canopy. If you just put it all together, he would have, like, I think it's like 5 weeks solid of free fall time. I think, if I'm doing some math in my head real quick that may not be correct, but.
So what I think is also interesting is that if you divide that number by 3, you get the number of hours I've ridden in a plane. And that's just for skydiving. I mean, I've taken a lot of trips, and I read books. Every plane ride up, I'm reading books, and people are always like, "Man, I can't believe you're reading on the plane." I'm like, it's been 8,000 hours, man. I gotta do something.
Damn.
Otherwise, just sitting here and thinking about whatever. I don't know.
And that's a lot of time with the chute open as well, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know the ratio, but I'm wondering, one of my other things I've been wondering is, like, I know it's all about the free fall, but do you enjoy having the canopy open? Is it part of, like, in surfing, which is my sport, you got 2 things. You got riding the wave. Well, you got sitting and waiting for the wave, which is neutral, but you got the paddle out, which is kind of unenjoyable to some degree. It's the work. You're working for it. It's like, hiking up the mountain to ski down, right?
But you got those shoulders.
Right. So you spend way more time paddling than actually riding a wave. Like, the average wave ride is 5 seconds long, right? And so you're spending so much time working for this like little tiny amount of joy. And I'm wondering, is that something that's comparable in skydiving, or
What would you call the paddle out for skydivers? Are you still there,
I mean,
JRuss?
definitely the plane ride. We're just not.
I
Yeah,
would say I would
I'm
say
on Starlink here, so.
packing your parachute. That's like the paddle out.
yeah,
Oh yeah, that's pretty good.
there's a lot of prep
Yeah,
work, a
because the
lot
plane
of
ride, there's no effort at all. You just sit there and
Yeah, you just sit
take
there
an
and laugh with
altitude.
your friends or goof off or take a nap or whatever.
yeah. So the canopy part it's enjoyable, right? I mean, you guys are having fun doing that part.
Yeah, for sure.
Just
And
meditating or whatever. I don't know what you do, but you're just smiling, looking at the earth.
yeah, the canopy portion is very fun, and some people that's their favorite part. There are people like you were looking at the Crave website earlier. I
Yeah.
don't know if you noticed, one of the courses that we offer is by a couple. Their names are Kurt and Jeannie Bartholomew, and their course is all about canopy piloting. And that's their jam. That's what they do, is they fly their
Wow.
canopies.
Yeah, I
So
see it. Wow.
I think Kurt has like 14,000 skydives, and the vast majority of those skydives are what we call hop and pop. So a hop and pop is where you exit the plane at a lower altitude, usually around maybe 5,000 feet instead of 14,000 feet. And as soon as you exit the plane, you deploy your main canopy. And Kurt is one of the best canopy pilots in the world. I mean, he's and so is Jeannie. Jeannie's phenomenal. So for them, that is by far their favorite part. And a lot of people, I mean, the canopy flying is very, very fun. It can be really enjoyable.
It's interesting. Yeah, I mean that reminds me of some other sports where you're paragliding type sports, right? If that's what you're all about.
Yeah.
You're riding the what are the gyres?
The what?
Yeah,
Is it a gyre?
the air currents.
Yeah.
Oh, like the up
I
current
think
or
that's
something, the
more like
draft
a
or whatever.
spinning air current, but yeah.
There's a lot of that around where I live. So, anyway, tangent.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring something up, and this is, I'm sorry, Ryan, this is way out of your wheelhouse, but
No worries.
I think it's important to talk about. So a couple days ago, sadly, there was a fatality. A friend of mine in Dubai was killed during skydiving, and he had an accident under canopy. And what happened was that two of his lines broke during his swoop. And it's pretty common knowledge right now. But the reason I want to talk about it is that it may be not confirmed, but it may be something that people who jump a fluid wings canopy need to be a little bit extra vigilant about their line condition. Once my friend's name was Sebastian. Once he had his accident, a few people got in touch with the management at Skydive Dubai to say that they had a similar experience with an A line breaking, which is the one that is perhaps suspect is the center A's on which is the very front of the canopy. So to have two of them break, which is what Sebastian had on the leading edge of the canopy, created an unstable platform, and he hit the ground. But some other people submitted videos of a single A line breaking. So just for full disclosure, one of the owners of Fluid was an AFF instructor of mine, Scott. He's a great dude, and I really believe in the canopy, and it's a bummer that or the company. It's a bummer that this is going on right now, and that there's a possibility that it's some systemic thing. But if you do jump a fluid wings canopy, especially if you are on the 400-pound blue Vectran lines, you need to pay some special attention to the wear that's happening. And if you are exhibiting wear, you need to get that replaced before your next jump. And Fluid Wings put out a service bulletin today. And so for any of our listeners, probably this is outside of the experience range of the vast majority of our listeners, but it's always possible that someone's listening and has not somehow gotten this information. Although, so Fluid put out a bulletin, and you should definitely read it if you are on a Fluid Wings canopy.
Thank you, JRuss.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And now I'm going to put my listening hat on, I think, and hear what Ryan has to say.
Yeah, real quick before we jump in with Ryan, JRuss, I want to tell you, got a message from a listener the other day, and he said that he was enjoying the show, been listening to it, and he said, I know you guys talked a few weeks ago. He was mentioning the episode where we had Tex on.
Yeah.
And he said, I know you guys have talked about exit order. You've talked about all that stuff, tracking, getting off jumper and all that stuff. He goes, that was a great episode. And he goes, but I think it needs to be covered more. Like, he goes, there's still lots of people. And he said he'd had a few, like 2 different experiences recently at his drop zone with those specific issues that could have ended very badly. That luckily everybody was okay. But so he was just asking us, like, hey, if you guys can cover those topics again, it would be, at least from his perspective, he thought it'd be really great and really helpful. So I wanted to put that out there just for everybody. Please be, if you don't understand exit order and why it's important, if you don't fully comprehend, what it means to get off of jump run during your skydive, but also once you open your canopy, it is so easy to fly your canopy up or down jump run or right back into traffic. Please, if you don't understand that, if that's not something that you've spent some time thinking about, sit down with someone at your drop zone, maybe the SNTA or the DZO or DZM, and really, really try to understand that. We will talk about it some more. We're not going to be able to get into it today on this episode, but we'll go over it again and talk about it some more, maybe put out an instructional video on YouTube or something. But it takes some time to think through it, all the different variables, and just to really understand it, so that when you're in, the loading area, you can be paying attention. And the other thing I want to say in the loading area, I'm going to speak for myself. I used to be very intimidated in the loading area to talk to other people that I wasn't jumping with, especially if I didn't know them. I was very intimidated to ask them what they were doing and what was going on. We should not be intimidated to do that. You should feel completely confident just asking people what they're doing on their jump. What's going on? Where are they going to be opening? What are they planning? Like, that should be a conversation that everyone is willing to have. And if you ask someone what they're doing on their jump because you're getting on that load and they're like frustrated or don't want to talk to you or don't want to tell you, that's not okay. We should all be happy to talk about that stuff as we're getting on the plane, because it means we're all being safe and we're all helping take care of one another. So across the board, we got to be willing to help one another in that way. And the loading area should be the least intimidating place. Right? I mean, JRuss,
yeah,
is that
100%? And I mean, out of a couple thoughts, I was going to listen to Ryan, but here you go.
Sorry, Ryan.
That number one, 2 of the people that I would like to have on from the European sector, 3 actually, Anna Mox and Ipo Fabi, who's an Italian guy. He is behind Tonefly.
Okay.
And Marco Tiezzi, who Marco's been doing angle flying for decades. And I don't know about his English, but anyway, all 3 of them will be on. And in fact, I spoke to somebody about Anna coming on, and she's a specialist in angle flying, and said, you know what, we just need to talk about it all the time. And so if there's other people who come on that have that skill set, we're just going to talk about it again, because maybe their words are a little bit different than my words.
Absolutely.
And it gets through to people in a slightly different way but whatever, it needs to get through in some way. And just for your sort of edification as you move forward as a mentor to the people at your drop zone, there isn't a load that I'm on that I'm not asking people, hey, what are you guys doing? Okay, cool. So here's what we're going to do for exit order. And I think that a lot of times people are quiet because they're not 100% sure themselves what's supposed to happen in that moment. And so to go ask other people, like, what are you guys doing? I don't even know where I should go. And so I think for maybe some people are pissy about it, but for the most part, I think most jumpers are just like, oh, cool, somebody sorted that out. So I mean, it's not been quantified as my job for the drop zone, but when I get to the loading area, I want to know what everybody's doing.
Yeah,
I'm not shy about it at all. So keep thinking about that as shepherding the other jumpers, and that'll maybe make it a better hat to put on in that moment.
Yeah. And at your drop zone, where it doesn't matter what drop zone you're at, you're one of the most experienced skydivers there, guaranteed. I mean, you are. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
But if a brand new jumper comes up to you and asks you in the loading area what you're doing on the jump, does that bother you at all?
No, it's a great question. They should know as well as me.
Exactly. Yeah. And I want people to know that. Like, that's nothing wrong with that. Experienced jumpers appreciate it because it shows concern and care, and that you're trying to figure out how to keep everybody safe. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, I was ranting. Okay, Ryan, I want to get into this, man, with you. So I'm going to give a brief. The reason we're having Ryan on the show is because I personally have been blessed. I am better off today because of this man. And this is the first time Ryan and I have ever met in person. Well, not in person, but you know what I'm saying. Ryan.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Now I feel like I know Ryan because I watch a lot of his videos, but we've, right before you got on JRuss was the first time we ever met. Ryan, you are a doctor of physical therapy.
That's right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. For all you guys listening and girls listening, Ryan has a program. It's very similar to Crave in the sense that it is an online course where you can sign up for his course. You can get access to all of his content. He's got a bunch of videos that he walks you through these physical therapy. I'm just going to say exercises for now. And Ryan, I'll leave it to you in a second to kind of correct and fix and use the verbiage that you want to use. But specifically to help people who are dealing with back pain. Maybe specifically lower back pain.
Yeah, that's most specifically lower. But yeah, we have people with all types of back pain going through now.
So I've been going through. I signed up for his course back in, I think it was beginning of December. So I've been going through this course, watching basically a video a day. There's been lots of days where I missed, or a week at a time where I would miss, not watch for a little bit. But very simple exercises, very simple things. Low impact, easy to do. And it really has made a difference. So if you are listening, if you're watching our show, if you have back issues, especially lower back issues, you need to check this out. It's called corebalancetraining.com with Dr. Ryan Peebles is his last name. I promise you it will help you. And I've shared this with a lot of skydivers already. And I know of 2 people specifically that have been using just the simple things I showed them from what I learned from Dr. Ryan, and it's helping them. And a couple of them have already, I think, signed up for the course. So Ryan, take it away, man.
That's awesome. First of all, Chris, thank you. I really appreciate that. A little promotion for us there. But yeah, so first thing I want to kind of just change the language, because you say physical therapy and people kind of get an idea in their head, because a lot of people have gone to a physical therapist, especially if you've had chronic back problems for a long time. You've been prescribed PT, you go in, you get these exercises, and that's not actually what we're teaching in the program. As you know, it's a little bit weird. It's kind of like hard to explain, what are we actually teaching? And the best way I describe it is we just call it core connection. We're teaching people how to get a better feeling of how to engage your core in a healthy way. It's like, what does that actually mean? People say, engage your core or use your core. Like, what does that mean? How do you do that? And there's different ways to do that. Then you go to a yoga or a Pilates class, they're telling you to bring your belly button towards your spine. You go somewhere else, they're teaching you something else. And so I had a long history of back problems over a decade, and definitely, it took surfing away from me for 2 years. I couldn't do my passion, and that sucked. And I think that's what drove me to commit my life to this. And I kind of just came up with what worked for me, and then I named it like these core connections, these ways of the way that we first learn to connect to the core, to your core, is with the ground, right? We use the ground, and we're modeling after human development, how an infant or a baby first still develops their core. And that's what happens first in their life. You know, if anybody's had experience with a baby, their core is very strong and their arms and legs aren't really doing, they can't really hold them up yet. So it's core first. And so we model after their development, and it all involves the floor and pushing away from certain support zones that I've named, right? You know the names, the back anchor, the front anchors, and then we put them all together, and it forms this just healthy way to engage your core without like hunching forward or like compensating in a weird way or military posture. You're on a military base right now, right? Or nearby one, right? So that is an example in the industry, in my industry, that we use military posture of something not to do, because it actually can create problems. It's where you throw your shoulders back and you stand up tall, and there's a lot of, tension in your lower back muscles when you do that. And so it's just about finding a balance of being able to do this. And then, as you know, Chris, or maybe you haven't made it this far yet, we just then start to apply this core connection. We become a master of this core connection, and then we apply it to whatever you want to do in life. And for me, that was surfing and rock climbing. For your population of listeners, it'd be skydiving. And you find there are lessons in the program that are geared towards, I can already think of a couple that would apply actually to positions that you're putting your body in skydiving. And so you're kind of like learning how to do this engagement while doing different things, like distracting things for the body. And so I think that's why it's been successful, is because we are, rather than going into a PT office, doing some exercises, and then going home and getting back to your normal life, we are totally integrating what we're learning with what you're going home to do in your life. And so it's not just 30 minutes 3 times a week to heal your back. It's becomes just part of your waking hours.
Yeah, dude, that's really, I mean, there's lots of things that have made a difference, but what I've noticed is the simple things that you've taught me how to do that I find myself applying all throughout the day. And I started to say, and I'm not even thinking about it, but no, I am thinking about it. That's the point, is that you do need to think about it. And so like just standing, like lots of times for me, just standing for a long time makes my lower back hurt so much. And it'll start, and I'm like, oh no, I'm look how I'm standing. I need it. And I'll think about you and your course, and I'm like, I make those adjustments. I do those decompression breaths, breathing into my lower back.
Nice.
And
that's
I feel that,
right there.
I feel that tension for a minute, but then I feel that release. I'm like, no, just go with it. Just go with it. Or walking. I just, went through one of the walking videos the other day. So I find myself like pushing myself forward instead of pulling myself. Just, all these little things, but it's one of the things I like about it is that you've given me some very practical things that I can do that actually make a difference. And they're not complicated, but they help. And one of the things that I've learned that was pretty significant for me, at least, and I'm going to kind of explain what I learned, and then you can, again, fix it, is this idea of core. Because for so long, I've heard people talking about core. And so I had this idea in my mind what my core was. And I just thought, based on everything I'd heard, the way people talk, the exercises that I see people doing to strengthen your core, I just thought, oh, your core is primarily your abdominal muscles, your six pack, like that's your core. And so for a long time, I was trying to strengthen my stomach with crunches and sit-ups and different stuff because I thought that would help my lower back. But then when I started listening to you and your videos and heard you talk, I was like, oh, that's actually not your abdominal muscles that your six-pack abs that you see outside. That's not your core. From what I have learned from you, your core is actually inside. It's surrounding your spine, and it is actually your core inside. And
that's interesting. think I just saw it the way that you're looking at it, and that's pretty cool.
And
the
so,
core of an apple, it's not the skin of the apple.
Right, exactly.
It's
It's not the
inside,
flesh of the apple either.
Uh-huh.
It's the core. And so doing sit-ups, is that strengthening your abs? Absolutely. Is it strengthening your core? Probably not that much.
Yeah, maybe not at all, or maybe for a healthy, balanced person, maybe it is. So we're talking about. I want to let you finish. I got things lined up to say right now.
No, that's pretty much it. That you really kind of helped me realize that, oh, there is a different set of muscles inside of me that I've never tried to strengthen and take care of, and that's what's causing some of my pain and discomfort and what's the word? Disconformity. What's the word?
Just the imbalances, muscle imbalances.
Imbalance, yeah.
That's what I would say, that the vast majority of people that are dealing with chronic back pain are dealing with muscle imbalances. They just have chronic tension in certain muscles, usually the lower back muscles and probably also the hip flexors. And then they just have a really low level of tone in some other muscle groups, like the deep abdominal muscles and the glutes. And so that imbalance makes, the pelvis sit in a different position, and it puts compression forces on the spine. And you can get into the science of it, but really you don't even have to learn that stuff to make this work. And that's why the program, you notice, isn't really focused on anatomy, or we don't call out the names of muscles. We're not trying to isolate muscles. We're just learning we're learning feelings. And that's why it's always been kind of hard to explain to people. It's we're learning how to feel what it feels like to do this. So anyway, let's go back to what you said. You talked about, the six-pack abs. That is a surface layer abdominal muscle, and it is part of your core. It's just, it has one main function, which is to move the body. It crunches the body. So you do a crunch, you're working your six-pack abs. And the difference between that muscle and the muscles we focus on, which are the deeper muscles underneath that, there's 4 layers of abdominal muscles. So we're focused on the inner 3 layers, is those muscles aren't really designed to move the body. When they contract, they just kind of compress and squeeze. And that compression force is comparable to a corset brace. You put a corset brace around your torso, you put it on real tight, you're going to feel stable. You're going to feel stability. You're going to feel, if you have back pain and then you put one of those on and you breathe into it, you're going to feel decompression, because that breath expansion going down into that brace is actually going to make you taller, because that expansion can't go out the sides. It has to go in this direction. And that's what we're working with. So we're kind of just manipulating, physics, biomechanics, going, yeah, we understand how this works, and we're going to use it to our advantage. And so instead of going to CVS and buying a corset brace, we create that brace with the muscles that are actually designed to function that way. And the tendency for people is that those muscles tend to shut off. They become underactive, they become inhibited. We're living a different lifestyle than we did hundreds of years ago. And I think that's just one of the results of the invention of a couch. Is that we have some changes in our body, and so we're doing some things to counterbalance that, and it does tend to restore balance and function in the body. And I don't know if you've noticed this, you didn't mention anything, but other issues tend to get better as well. We get a lot of feedback that, I did this for my back, but my knees are feeling better. My knee pain went away, or my neck or something. And, that just speaks to how the body is all interconnected, right? We can't deny that. So
yeah, that's cool.
That's, that's the core.
Yeah. Well, JRuss, do you have any? I've got all sorts of questions but I want to give you a chance if you have something.
I mean, the one that instantly jumps to mind as a guy
Hold
that
on.
I'm
You're,
not hearing him right now.
you're a robot again.
I'll try. Starlink, be better.
He can type it. He can type his question.
Yeah. Is it still bad?
No, now there we go. Now we got you.
Okay. As a guy that started life after puberty at 5'10", and I'm currently 5'9", what I really heard Ryan say was, if I wear a corset, I'm going to be taller.
Yeah, you can just wear a corset.
There you go.
I'm glad
That's
you heard
great. That's JRuss's takeaway from the whole thing.
Yeah.
Good. Very good.
No, I really was thinking about our skydiving team name is Core, and that how many times I've talked to people that I'm trying to help be better skydivers and talk to them about engaging their core. And you would think that that would be a fairly straightforward request. But as Chris highlighted, the knowledge about what that exactly means is not always there. And then the ability to engage it is also not really there. And I don't know if it's accurate what I do, but normally I just tell people, look, you don't have to be a bodybuilder. I need engagement in your core. And I usually say it like, think about it from like your crotch up to about your nipples, and like, you can't be a rag doll. And so what I usually do is, if people are being a rag doll, is I tell them beforehand, hey, I'm just going to jab you in the tummy. And that sort of, that you feel, that's what I mean. Engage your core. Don't let that part flop around.
Yeah, that would be a pretty good method for how to do like a temporary core engagement. You're going to be under a lot of stress. I mean, physical stress, skydiving for what is it, 4 seconds or whatever, when the chute first opens, and you're just like decelerating like incredibly. This is probably one of the most important parts, I'm just assuming.
No, he's talking about during free, like flying with your body.
Okay, so the whole time free fall, you want people to be bracing like that?
Yeah, and it might not be in your sort of sphere of awareness, Ryan, but Chris and I both participate in indoor skydiving, which is a vertical wind tunnel.
I'm aware of it. Yeah.
Okay, and a lot of the coaching that we do, because the cost is so much lower than actual skydiving, and in addition, there's some variables in there that you don't have to ride the plane, you don't have to use your parachute. Your learning segment is 2 minutes long, say, or somewhat arbitrarily, and then you get out and you rest for a couple minutes, then you get right back in. Whereas a skydive is 45 seconds, and you wait for an hour, and you go up and get another 45 seconds. So your learning is kind of condensed. So when I'm in there, I mean, I can do it in the sky as well, but I have a greater ability to just walk up to somebody and jab them in the stomach. So that was kind of where my mind was at when I said that.
Yeah, I'm curious though. So I would have, as you noticed, I would have assumed that the massive deceleration would be the ragdoll moment in your sport.
Can be,
where you're getting you're getting yanked around, and that's where the spine would be pretty vulnerable. But I'm curious, in what sense do you want people to stay engaged during all of free fall? Is that because the wind is going to just make you ragdoll, like the intense wind pressure, or what is it?
Well, there's a couple different body orientations that you can have, and if I keep it away from sort of nuance and just stick with the 4 basic ones, your belly towards the earth, your back towards the earth, in a seated position similar to how we are right now, and then with your head pointed at the earth. And that is a cascade of decreasing surface area. And so belly, there you go. A belly's a lot of surface area exposed to the wind, 50% of your body or close. Back fly is less, sit fly is much less, and flying head down is not a lot at all. And so in those upper sort of brackets of free fall speed, which are head up and head down, the seated and the head down, people do, if they're not engaged, they sort of spawning salmon through the process or something like that, where that articulated doll is great. I gotta get one of those.
That's great.
So especially in those two sort of higher wind speed scenarios, that's when I want people to be. Not that I don't want them at other times, but that helps hold their position and keep them in control.
Right. I would imagine that some people would have trouble sustaining that type of brace that you're triggering with jabbing them in the stomach. I'm sure for a lot of the people in your sport are relatively fit, so and probably would be able to do that. But I also imagine some people could brace for a second to take a punch in the stomach, but they wouldn't maybe be very good at holding that. And I think that's what becomes really important, is the endurance or the stamina. It actually applies to what I do, just going through your normal day. Most people are just doing low level activities like gardening or the dishes, and their back's starting to hurt just from doing that. So we're really learning how to maintain a core engagement over time. That's the hardest part. So you're needing probably a little higher level of intensity of engagement because of the wind speeds. And yeah, so I'm just in my head thinking, like, what could be a solution? Like, instead of having everyone go through core balance training program, like, what could you do instead of jabbing them to get them to like be able to hold that engagement?
Sorry, I want to put in the chat one more time, because what you're talking about is something I would really like people to have before they come get my coaching. And so was it corebalance.com?
Core balance training. Yeah. Yeah, okay. It really is. I mean, you can maybe relate to this, Chris. It's really about maintaining that core engagement and being able to breathe. Like, we talk a lot about, like, can you breathe fluidly and continuously with this core engaged? Because taking a punch is not applicable to how we need to do this in real life. We need to be able to take little jabs for minutes, right? With this, just a low level core engagement. And like I said, you'll need to turn it up a little bit. I don't know if you can hear my son crying, but my mic usually blocks it out. Can you hear it?
Just awesome. Tiny bit.
So anyway, yeah, that's what I'm thinking is like, how could we get these people to learn how to hold that engagement? What is your how effective is that technique? The jab technique.
I mean, as you said, most people can do it for a short period of time, but and I guess I can't say if they can or can't sustain it, but it stops being in the front of their mind, so they don't generally. And part of the learning process at the higher wind speeds is to maintain that sort of balance point throughout what you're doing and not let go of it, so that you go back to flopping around. It takes a little while to get people to tell themselves that.
I really think one of the best things you could do is ask them to breathe while holding the engagement. Because if you can make that connection, if you can associate breathing with the engagement, that's essentially, it's like a form of meditation. Meditation is just focusing on your breath. And if you can focus on your breath and have that also be just part of engaging your core, I think that's a doable thing. Just like, do this type of breathing. In core balance training, we just say breathe into your lower back. And you could do it right now. If you try to send your breath down and back, like not where it usually goes out your belly. Try to send it into your lower back and just try to keep breathing that way. You're going to feel just naturally a little bit more engagement, or, just a little contraction in the front of your belly, because it's blocking the breath from going out the front. That's what's sending it back. So you could just, take that, use that, say, hey, just breathe into your lower back while you're falling the whole time. Just breathe into your back, and you probably get a little bit of engagement in the front from that.
Yeah, that actually I wanted to. So we're getting close to time, but we may have to have you back on the show, man, and go over some more stuff. But I wanted to, if that's okay for me to share with everybody that the image that you gave of a Coke can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You know, you
totally.
imagine a Coke can that's you've kind of crushed it just a little bit, so it's dented in on all sides, right, JRuss? And imagine if you were to, put an air compressor or hose or whatever and pump air in there, pushing that air in would make it pop out, right? Like, so one thing that's been so helpful to me is these decompression breaths, exactly what you're talking about, where you think about, normally if I'm breathing and just completely relaxed, I take a breath in, my stomach gets big, right? Like it pushes my stomach out and in, out and in. But if I kind of try to keep my stomach flat and a little bit tense, like engage those muscles, even the abdominal muscles, the outside muscles, just engage that. And I breathe in and I don't let my stomach move out at all. And I think about my breath going down into my lower back. And I can actually feel my spine, like, instead of, at the base of your spine, it's kind of like this. And here's my stomach over here. This is my stomach. This is my spine. I can feel my spine kind of straightening out, flexing. And that, as it straightens a little bit, that decompression, it's taking all that pressure off. It's like, oh, it's just like this relief,
I'll take that actually, and I'll make it even easier. So one of the last things you said you do is just think about breathing into your lower back. You can forget all that other stuff you said about engaging and contracting, because if you only just do that, we lost his image.
Can y'all still
He's
hear
still
me?
here. It
Yeah.
happens sometimes.
So
I think it's
if
my
you
camera.
only just think about or have the intention of sending your breath into the lower back, all that other stuff happens just like naturally. It happens. That's how the body sends the breath back. So you don't have to like consciously engage. Those muscles will just do it if you're having that intention. So it makes it a little more simple, a little easier. And it's just, it's super effective. I mean, the amount of feedback that we get about that is just overwhelming. And there's a lot of people in the program now. I mean, we're not big. I would say we're still small or maybe medium sized, but I would say the breathing is the biggest game changer. And it's funny, it's in the free trial, right? It's like the first thing I teach, and it's totally free. And it is the most valuable thing. And if you just took that,
the bridge is also
the
huge.
bridge is
huge.
Yeah, the bridge is gonna be for getting you out of back pain.
Yeah.
If you have a long history of back pain, you're going to need more than just the breathing, and the bridge really is the tool we use to restore balance in the muscles that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah, I can tell when I go for a few days without doing that, even if I only do it for a couple of minutes or 3 minutes a day, but if I go for a few days, 4 or 5 days without doing it, I'm like, oh gosh, I got to start doing that again. Like, it makes a difference, man.
Yeah.
And then put in all the other things. It's just so awesome. Well, okay, we're gonna have to wrap it up in a second, but I don't know. So another issue that a lot of skydivers have, that's very common among skydivers, is shoulder issues. So I haven't seen that you have anything for shoulders, but if we could convince you to start thinking about shoulder help, man, we would love that.
Well, tell me real quick, how much time do we have left? Like 5
well,
minutes?
we're gonna
wrap it up right now.
Maybe no, maybe like
a couple minutes.
How long?
Yeah, a few minutes.
Yeah.
5 or 10
minutes maybe.
Just I'll think about this when after we get off the show. What are some of the most common mechanisms of injury? So you told me shoulder is one of the most common injuries, but what is the mechanism that injures the shoulder? And also, if back pain or another type of injury, what are these mechanisms that cause the injury?
Well, if you're talking about the specific forces that might be applied, a lot of belly flyers, people who, point their belly button at the earth, their hands are getting pressure all along here, and it's sort of distant from the joint. And so that can put a lot of backwards pressure. So people will start having rotator cuff issues.
Okay.
But for all of us, I mean, in a perfect world, and it's usually the way we want to do it, when we're going to deploy the parachute, everybody's belly to earth, unless there's something really wrong, so that your parachute can come out behind you where it's supposed to be. And so that involves the same kind of thing. But then you reach back behind your back and grab something that is going to instantly inflate. It's called your pilot chute, and you're going to throw it out in the wind, and then that's going to extract your parachute. But that puts your arm in a somewhat vulnerable position, again, for your shoulder joint. And so people who belly fly, many of the most experienced belly flyers that I know, and I'm doing it with my right arm because that's where mine is, they'll switch it to the left side because their right arm, the right shoulder gets messed up after so many thousands of deployments. All it takes is one where your pilot chute inflates faster than you let go, and your arm gets yanked behind you in a really vulnerable position, in my opinion. So that hopefully is that what you were asking, kind of the mechanism?
Yeah, definitely. I understand the whole shoulder thing, and this is going to be a matter of basically, I mean, you're taking the shoulder out of a normal range of motion, and it is possible to, I will say that I 100% believe it's possible to be able to do this with your shoulder and not injure it, but it's going to take some really proactive training to get strong in these ranges of motion. Because what happens is your shoulder's getting taken out of its safe zone, out of its functional range of motion, not by its own muscles, but by wind and by other forces. And it doesn't know how to function in under control. It doesn't have muscular control in that range. And so what you would have to do is on land, train the control in that extreme range of motion with weight, essentially. And you might have to like get your body in similar positions and be lifting weight, or get a bar and be going, I know you guys can't really see, but going around the head and the back, and just getting, one tool that I could see being really useful is the mace. Have you guys seen people train with a mace?
Like the thing that used to be used in warfare?
Yeah. Okay. This is a training tool that people see. You can look it up on YouTube or whatever. So you'll have a metal bar and then a heavy ball, like a cannonball at the end of it. And they're swinging it around their heads, going and doing different ways of swinging it. And it's incredible shoulder training and strengthening in these extreme ranges of motion. And if you can get really strong doing that, that is the way that you will be able to prepare your body to handle the forces that you're dealing with in the sky. And that's really the only way I can see addressing it, is to get strong in those ranges of motion, so that the tissues, the rotator cuff tissues and all the other tissues are, they're strong. They know what to do. They know how to operate in that range of motion.
And just for full disclosure, we probably need to tell our viewers not to have the little spiky bits on the mace ball. So.
Yeah. Definitely. This is a dangerous form of training, so you got to be safe. Yeah. But that would be one example, and there are other examples. Guys doing stuff on a pull-up bar that involves getting the shoulders, out of a normal range of motion, but being strong. It's not about like whipping yourself there. It's about being in control through those ranges of motion. That's what you have to develop, is the control. So that when you do get whipped there by the wind, the muscles at least know how to contract and engage in that range and protect yourself.
So JRuss, and I know you got something that if you need to get off, JRuss, dude, but my question is, how important is flexibility in that, not just strength, but also like flexibility and actual range of motion?
Yeah. You have to have both.
Okay.
They go hand in hand. If you take a bodybuilder with terrible range of motion and have him do that, he's incredibly strong, but his shoulder is going to get torn because he doesn't have the range of motion. Yeah. So you have to have the range of motion first, and then you really have to get strong in that range of motion.
Yeah.
And I'm
Okay.
assuming a lot of the skydivers either they have the range of motion or not, but none of them, or very few of them, actually have the strength and control in that extreme range of motion to be able to hold a weight like this, or to be able to, and I'll tell you
Yeah.
that right now, I don't train like that, but if I did, I could develop it. And
Yeah.
I know, that's what you got to do.
Yeah. And I think there are a couple other scenarios or places where shoulders tend to get injured or stressed, or, you know, like even under canopy pulling on toggles and stuff like that. JRuss, I think a lot of, or at least I've experienced some issues, and have a few other friends who that may not be the primary, but I think there are a couple other places too that we could, you know, at some point discuss and kind of look at how to.
I mean, definitely what it sounds like from listening to the two of you, because I haven't tried core balance training yet, but it just seems like something that's a super positive thing potentially for your life, and then it might also have some positive aspects that apply to skydiving.
Yeah, it's not going to address the shoulder thing that we're talking about right now, but it like you said it really well, it's going to have positive impact on anybody really, even if you don't have back pain, because we're just doing things that are like good for anyone's body, and that's the approach we take to get out of back pain. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, anything else on your mind, JRuss? I'm going to say it.
I mean, you know, that's staring into the abyss. So
The abyss. Yes.
We can call it at any time, really. I mean, I think we could talk for hours about this topic.
For sure. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I can come back on if you guys really want. I mean, I don't know if you just were joking when you threw that out, but
no, I think it'd be cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, I think it would be great to dive a little bit deeper into it, because of course, there's a program and this is what you do. And I don't want to say we're going to give it all away, but especially since you do, sounds like you give away the breathing part for free.
Yeah. There's a 7-day free trial. And, you know, I encourage people, like, just do the free trial and just cancel, because just that, and you can attest to that, just that'll be enough to really have a positive impact. And you can work on that for months. You can work on that first module for months and just get a lot of.
But it sounds like you guys are talking about, like, you're not saying, hey, you got to go to the gym. Chris is doing this stuff wandering around his house, and it's improving his life.
Yeah.
That seems pretty simple. It's
very easy stuff.
Yeah, we kind of like guide you a little bit to set up a bit of a routine and a space in your home, and you just need like a little floor space, ideally quiet, so you can. It's almost like you're meditating on your body, and that's all you need.
Yeah. All right. Well,
cool.
You've done it again. You've wasted another perfectly good hour listening to the Crave Show.
It's not a waste.
JRuss.
You can keep saying it. I'm going to keep saying it.
Yeah, that's great, man. I love it. Hey,
so corebalanctraining.com.
That's it.
And thanks, Ryan, for joining us. It's been awesome.
If you're not ready to do that, then YouTube, Core Balance, whatever, Instagram. I don't do that, but the company has that stuff. I do. I'm involved in the YouTube stuff, and there's a lot of helpful content on there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks so much for being on the show, man. Really, really awesome to have you. Everybody, thanks for listening. I hope this was helpful. Oh, there goes my video again. Mm-hmm. That's all right. Yeah, check out his website, corebalanctraining.com. And send us some, if you have any other questions for Dr. Ryan, send them to me. You can message me through Instagram or reach out to JRuss, and we'll pass those questions on to Ryan. I'm sure he'd be happy to answer them.
Yep.
And if you want to get connected with them or look at the program, go check out the website. Other than that, get in an airplane, jump out, get in the sky, have some fun with your friends, man. Go have a good time. Enjoy the sky. Enjoy being out there.
Absolutely.
Flying with your friends, right? Yeah, man. That's why we do it, to have fun. Crave, do more, be better. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. Thank you.